stories. I found out I had to move in a hurry. The house I was living in was suddenly sold, and I was worried I wouldn't find help to move my things. Tom overheard me talking about it and jumped at the chance to help me, saying he had been a professional mover before. I hesitated but finally gave in. Huge mistake. He came and got me some boxes. He was going to keep them at his house until I could get them taken to my new apartment. I can't even explain how it all went down, but one minute I was packing and getting things ready, the next he was pinning me down and trying to kiss me. At first I was kind of embarrassed and tried to make a joke out of it. I pushed him away playfully, but he didn't take that for an answer. He put his elbow and hand and forearm across my chest once he had wrestled me down onto the bed. It was so hard to breathe that I thought I was going to die. There was so much pain, I remember that. He wasn't gentle. I had some small internal injuries. 5 months later, I remember watching the fan blades slicing through the air and hoping he would be done soon. There was so much pain, and everything was in slow motion. He was angry. He was proving a point. Tom told me he had done that before, that a girl he took out on a date owed him, and he was going to get his. And she was drunk and passed out, so he raped her. I was in disbelief. I think he told me that horror story so that I'd be afraid and comply, but I didn't. I yelled. But it's hard to yell when you can't breathe. He was bigger than me, so my moving, fighting, and squirming didn't stop him. Once he was done, I slid onto the floor, and he just got up and went downstairs, possibly for a smoke. Finally, he said something like he'd call me and left, not seeming like he had thought anything bad had happened. I was a 13-year-old female who had to go to the hospital and get my spine fixed. Up until the day before this, I was in a wheelchair. I decided to ditch my parents and enjoy walking while I could after the surgery. I was free for once in my life. I was wandering around the hospital looking everywhere for nothing in particular when I wandered near my room to see a middle-aged woman passed out on the floor. I got the nearest people to help me, and they called a code blue. Since I was really into medical shit, I knew what a code blue was. I stood in horror as I watched the lady being shocked when I couldn't take it. I was watching some random lady being brought back from the dead. I found the cafeteria and got a sandwich from the deli and sat at an empty seat. A 25-year-oldish man sat down at the table, which I ignored. He muttered to me that he was very thankful I found his wife. I flashed a kind of smile and continued eating. He touched my head, and this really got me creeped out. He said I had nice hair, and I was just like, hold the fuck up. I squeezed his arm until he let go. I just glared at him, and that made him walk away. Then a couple of minutes passed, and the guy was back with the same sandwich as me. He stated that the setup was not how he imagined our first date. I said, hold up. You go fucking around with other women while your wife is in the hospital dying? That's it. I'm out of here. I found a group of adults who I knew and told them about the situation. My dad was amongst the group, and he angrily stood up and pursued the man pushing him against the wall, yelling so much his face was red. The guy proceeds to say that my dad had a pretty girlfriend, referring to me, and that pushed me over the line. And 13-year-old me snapped. I told my dad to step aside, and I gave the guy 2 black eyes and a bloody nose. My dad had never been prouder. It all started when summer came. Me and 3 friends, Lola, Katie, and Jennifer, were all planning to go camping. We were all excited and scared at the same time because we were going camping alone. Lola asked her dad if he could drop us off. He agreed to take us. When the next day came, we started heading up. Lola's dad set up the camper that we were using. There are some spare blankets inside in case you get cold, he said, before leaving. Lola's dad finally got in his truck and turned around. He stopped, rolled down his window, and said, "No boys," to all of us, smiled at us to let us know he was joking with us, and drove off. There were 3 rooms in the trailer, 1 master bedroom, 2 rooms with bunks. Each room had a TV in it, so nobody cared what room they got. Everyone knew that Jennifer didn't like small rooms, so we let her have the big one. I was in a room with Lola, and Katie was in a room by herself. I started unpacking when we heard a loud boom outside. "Lola, did you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The boom." "Yeah." We both looked at each other, startled, and then continued unpacking. Something seemed off. It was the fact that Lola was so chill about it. I was done unpacking, so I walked outside and started a fire. Jennifer walked out and asked if I saw it. I asked, "Saw what?" Then she started freaking out. She was staring behind me, panicking. Eyes darted back and forth, and then she calmed. I felt as if something was watching me, so I turned around. I saw an orb in the corner of my eye, reddish black, but by the time I turned to look, I was gone. I was so freaked out, I told Katie she could cook instead. We had her family's secret recipe of shepherd's pie and a bunch of vanilla cupcakes. There were about a dozen cupcakes left in the open box, so we just left it on the table and went to bed. I could hear the TV coming from Katie's room, so I punched the wall and told her to be quiet. Right after I said it, everything went quiet, except for a small scream in the distance. It gave me the chills that ran down my spine. I dozed off, but woke up in the middle of the night hearing someone in the kitchen. I woke up Lola and then walked outside in the small hallway that led into the kitchen. I saw Jennifer sitting on the table, staring straight ahead. Something touched me. I jumped and realized it was just Katie seeing what was making the weird sounds. Jennifer was really creeping me out. She never stared into this space this often again. But then I noticed something in the corner of my eye. It was a shadowy figure. It was staring at Jennifer and slowly turned to face me and Kat. I froze. Katie froze. Jennifer then looked at us as if we were being controlled. Then the figure ran out the window, and Jennifer then dropped her head onto the table. I tried to wake her up, but ended up falling asleep. This experience still scares me to this day, and it is one of the creepiest things that has ever happened. Me and the others are still very close friends. We live together now, but we all remember that night and whatever we saw. It turns out Jennifer remembers seeing it in the daytime, but it was cold when the rest of us saw it. It freaks me out even more knowing that our friend wasn't even awake and staring into space, eyes wide open. Sounds like she was smoking crack. When I was about 14 or 15, my dad and I went camping with one of his friends at a local park 5 miles from where we lived. The campgrounds is located in the biggest state park in our area with miles of trails, many of which are for horseback riding and mountain biking. In addition to being able to walk those trails, the day after we initially set up camp, we decided to hike some of the trails after breakfast. After walking about 20 minutes, we came to this group of trees with people both standing on the ground and hanging out of the trees. The odd part is they were all wearing medieval clothing. They all had some sort of weapon. They were asking if we were part of some clan and if we weren't, then we shouldn't pass. We all tried to explain that we were just campers walking along that particular trail, but I don't think they got it because they asked us the same question again. One of those people started to come towards us. That's when we started running in the other direction. At the time, we weren't sure who those people were and what they were doing in the middle of the woods. And now that I think of it, they were probably a group of people LARPing. LARPing means live action role playing. But at the time, I nor my dad and his friends knew what LARPing was. I laugh about it now. If you're new, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, as it really helps me out. And if you are already subscribed, welcome back and thank you for subscribing.